Now let's bring in Judge Jeanine Pirro, who's joining us by phone. Judge, thank you so much. You know, looking at the evidence and the charges that we've seen today, the suspect was charged with four charges of first-degree murder. There wasn't a lot of information given to the public during that press conference about how the police came to that conclusion. But what kind of evidence do you think that the prosecutors and the police would have to be sure about those charges?
Well, what we have here is a probable cause affidavit. That affidavit will be unsealed after the arraignment, which, as everyone has already said, will only occur if the defendant or the accused at this point waives extradition voluntarily and returns to Idaho for prosecution, or if there is an extradition hearing and the governor in Idaho gets involved in this. And I've done it many times as DA. Extradition can take a week, 10 days. It slows the process down somewhat. But my sources are telling me that there is genealogical DNA that was established in this case that led the police to this particular suspect. So although that was, according to my sources, who are very credible and reliable, the reason the case has been made clear is just beginning. And if you try murder cases, and especially murder cases that involve several victims, you understand that really the investigation begins now. And as it relates to this guy Kohlberger, now that he is out there as the defendant, the issue is, what did he say? Who did he hang out with? You know, when he was in school, did he talk about doing this kind of thing as a criminal justice major? He was interested in what the criminal was thinking when a criminal committed a violent crime. So there's all kinds of additional evidence that will be gathered at this point going forward. So when you try a murder case, you understand that you are still investigating until your closing statement, and I have done it many times. Now, as it relates to genealogical evidence, they literally can get evidence back to the 1800s, and it's not your typical CODIS. So your typical person who knows CODIS and DNA says, okay, if you're in the bank as a criminal, your DNA can be matched to what's in the bank. The truth is, if you're not a criminal, and Kohlberger, as far as I know, did not have a criminal record, so he wouldn't have been matched in the CODIS data bank. They then would have to take the blood that was a blood not of any of those four victims and have that blood analyzed and then build a genealogical tree from that test. And so they find out who are the relatives. Once they figure out who the suspect is, they then start to continue to investigate, spread out from Idaho to the car to Pennsylvania. And, you know, they populate with historical data. This is genius that's going on. So CODIS can give us a 30% solving of cases, but this genealogical DNA can give us a 90% chance of solving these cases. So in addition to what will be unequivocal, evidence, they're going to have all kinds of circumstantial evidence in addition to that evidence, which we'll see when the affidavit is unsealed.
Judge, it's Kennedy. So I have a question about something that Lawrence brought up, and that was the statement that this person allegedly made to the arresting officers in Pennsylvania. And that was, you know, did you arrest anybody else? And obviously that could be a red herring that a very intelligent sociopath would throw out in order to prolong an investigation and litigation potentially. But what are the chances, in your estimation, having seen cases like this, that he perpetrated this alone?
Look, you know, Kennedy, I don't know enough about it to be able to give you an answer on that that's grounded in any evidence yet. But what I can tell you is this. The guy is clearly a sociopath. And by that, I don't mean to suggest in any way that he is insane. He is clearly sane. And for anyone who's listening, he's not going to get away with any kind of mental insanity.
Yeah,
but
that's what I was trying to figure out.
Is he trying to trick the police, number one? And number two, the police were looking for all the occupants of the white Hyundai. And so he may be feeding into that. And we don't know what he may have said that he thought was innocent to the other members of the white Hyundai that now will take on a different meaning now that he's the defendant.
Hey, Judge, it's Joe Concha. It's just mind-boggling that these 4 murders were carried out in a home while 2 others were sleeping the entire time. So I go back to Kennedy's question before, which is the suspect asked if anyone else was arrested. It's just hard to believe that he was able to carry this out alone. It wasn't a gun, obviously, that was used here to kill 4 people, and no one else hears it. It's almost as if he would need help to get this done. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, I always wondered about that, but let's talk about the fact that, you know, they've got this genealogical DNA, according to my sources, which is spot on. And if anyone else was cut on the scene, then that person's blood would be in there too, and they are either on their trail right now and trying to put it all together or looking for someone. But I don't know. And that's what you can't do. You can't speculate at this point. I always thought it would take more, but yeah, Joe, look, when kids go out partying, it's a weekend, it's a Saturday night. Who knows how much they, you know, drink as part of the party? And, you know, the toxicology and the medical examiner, the coroner, didn't want to get into that because they didn't want to in any way, you know, malign the victim. We don't know how much partying they had done and whether or not, you know, they could have been awakened by a fire truck.
Judge, you know? you're so spot on that, because on Cross Country, we interviewed several people that used to live at the residence, and they said, you know, it's kind of like a basement. You really can't hear what's going on upstairs. But I want to get to the investigation, because that's going to be critical, how this is tried in court. What do you expect? Because, again, law enforcement talked about preserving the crime scene. We know that now there has been an order released by the court that they were going to turn over the house to the owner of that house so they could start getting folks back in. But a judge has since stopped that. Why is that important to preserve the crime scene?
I'll tell you why. Because the judge is concerned about the defendant and the defendant's rights and the fact that the defense attorney is going to want access to that scene the way it is. Smart move, protecting the record.
All right. Judge Jeanine Pirro, thank you so much for your expertise and joining us today.
Hey,
we'll see you soon.
Miss you guys. Take care.
Happy New Year, Judge.
Happy New Year.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.